right. Gonna let people file in here. I'm Jamie. I work at Ambition. You will not see me for the rest of the hour, but just let's see. Let's get these people in here before I kick it off here and hand it over to our panel. So again, I'm Jamie. I work at Ambition. Won't bore you with all the details there, but we have such an exciting panel for you today. I'm kind of blown away at the caliber of people that we've managed to pull together, and I'm super pumped to have them here. And the Pied Piper is, of course, our moderator Lauren Bailey, who is the CEO of Factor 8. And a longtime friend of Ambition. But before I kick it over to her, if you are logged in right now, just know if you need to hop off or if you just love everything you hear and you want to share it with everyone you've ever met, you will get the recording. I will get that out to you later today. So do not fret. It is coming your way. Also, I will be monitoring the Q&A and the chats. If you have questions, if it's interactive, I'm sure Lauren will ask you some things as we go through. Just do not be shy. Please kick it out there and we will make sure that your voices are heard. We also got a ton of really amazing questions at registration, including how burned out you are, which was really exciting. So we will reveal that poll result and you will see and can commiserate with all of your exhausted peers here today. But like I said, I'm going to kick it over to Lauren for our discussion, Managing Sales Accountability, Effectiveness, Communication as the World Reopens.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. And thank you for having me back. Once a year, I get to come play with my friends at Ambition, whether it's a live event or a webinar like this with my friends, and it's a ton of fun. So thank you for having me. In about 10 seconds, I'm going to have this esteemed, fabulous panel introduce themselves. But first, I want to tell you just a brief story about how we came up with this topic and why you decided, I think, to join us today. I was speaking with my good friend, Joe, a VP at a local company in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I live as well. And he was saying that, you know what, it's tough lately. Like his team was doing crazy well during the pandemic. And then all of a sudden, he's got some trouble with engagement. And it was surprising to him. So he was on one of our Factor 8 open bar peer executive sharing sessions. And we were, sharing ideas. But the thing is, here in Phoenix, Arizona, we're open. We're all the way open, right? Like, it's spring break here. It's crazy, people everywhere. If you're 20, like you're walking down Main Street in a bikini, drinking a beer, it may as well be Vegas. It is like, people can't wait. It's tons of fun. But that's different all over the rest of the world and by different types of companies and industries and. So I thought, here's a really cool conversation where we can help our leader peers find out what everybody else is doing and ask some questions and just get real about helping each other through this. So I've curated a bunch of amazing people from all different types of companies, different locations, different sizes, different types of reps. So as they introduce themselves to you, I want you to pick your guru. Now, you may have just heard pick your favorite, which is what I heard, and that's okay. Good luck with that because they're all fabulous. But as they introduce themselves, they're going to tell you just a tiny bit about their situation so that you can be like, oh, yeah, that's like me. I'm definitely going to listen to Jared, right? Or, oh, that's my other location. Angus is going to be the guy that I can't wait to ask a question to. Cool? So panelists, here we go. Take notes. Because we're doing just a conversational setting, I don't have a slide to share with you on this. You're going to tell us your name and your role and your company. That's the easy part. And then briefly tell us your number and type of employees / sellers, right? I oversee a team of one remote SDR, right? So I'm the super tiny company perspective. And then finally, tell us where you are today. For instance, I'm virtual. And where your company is planning on being in 6 months. Pardon me, not 6 months, in October, in just a few months. I will still be virtual. So you might be virtual, you might be in office, you might be hybrid. Just sort of tell us this today and near term, and then we'll get all into long term and plans and all that kinds of good stuff. So I'm going to call on Lauren first because she's fabulous, and ladies first, and what a great name. Well, and then I think, right? And then we're going to go geographically. So I'll go to Angus and then Jared, and then Bobby will wrap us up. So Lauren, tell everybody about you. Let them pick you as their guru.
pick me, pick me, pick me. My name is Lauren Chacon. I have a fabulous first name that I share with Lauren Bailey, Chief Sales Officer of Constant Contact. My gig is high volume, high velocity. So I have about 70 inside telesales reps based in either Waltham, Massachusetts, or Loveland, Colorado, most beautiful place on earth. And then I've got about 10 channel reps who are more enterprise when we were going out and about. And we are all remote right now. And I would say by October, we will be hybrid.
That's exciting. All right. Good question.
Remote
No,
today,
you nailed it.
hybrid in October.
Yeah. You basically,
one other thing is we love ambition and we love Factor 8.
and your check's in the mail. And you just guarantee that everybody else is going to look bad because you nailed it. All right, Angus, good luck, my friend.
Okay, how do I follow that? So first of all, thanks, Lauren, for inviting me along. I'm really, honored to join the call today. So I'm Angus McGeechy. I'm the head of inside sales in EMEA for VMware, so technology sellers. In my team, we have a group of about 180 currently. So split between SDRs, classical SDRs, and sellers, a community of about 30 SDRs, and the rest, sellers, quota carrying. And typically SDRs and the sellers community is focused on what we call commercial, so mid-market. Yeah, right now we're remote. I don't know if you guys are following, what's happening in the EU, but the EU is a little bit slow with the whole vaccine program. So yeah, we're remote in casa, as we say in Spain. And there's some good news coming around the corner, though. We may be getting back to the office in a limited capability by the end of June, which would be fantastic. And where will we be by October? Hybrid, I would say. So even if we can get back to the office, it's under very controlled, situation. So 25% of capacity June, going up to about 50%, I would say, by October, which would give us about 100 people in the office, which would be amazing because everyone's dying to hang out with each other again.
Yeah. So I love that you're going to bring us the international perspective, Angus. So yes, he is Scottish, for those of you who are still trying to catch up as your brain is processing his fabulous accent, my very favorite accent in the world. I know that you're in Barcelona, and in EMEA, you're representing all of the rest of the EU from your Barcelona hub. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So you're hearing lots of different stories from lots of different customers as well. So I hope you'll pull on that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Angus. Really cool. All right, Jared Houghton.
Am I up? Okay. Let me see if I hit everything. Keep me in line if I don't. I think it would be impossible to accept guru status with this crew here. So thank you for allowing me to join you. I'm Jared Houghton. I'm the co-founder and CRO of Ambition.com. We have about 20 sellers today. I'd say 2/3 of that is on the sales development front. We do mostly, outbound mid-market and enterprise companies, and we have a more enterprise sell on the account executive side. So everything we've done in the pandemic and before has been largely remote hybrid, which is interesting. So we remain that today. We have a base camp in 2 offices, Nashville, Tennessee, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. And there's about 25 people in each of those markets. And people are starting, as Laura mentioned, it's not quite spring break, but we are in the Southeast, and people, are a little bit more comfortable at this time. I think folks are starting to feel comfortable with the vaccinations and everything to get back into the office. So I'd say October will look similar as it does now. Pretty hybrid, maybe a few more people coming into the office on a regular basis. Did I hit it all?
Nailed it. Thank you.
Perfect.
So Jared's representing the small company, right? I'm the tiny, Jared's the small, Lauren's the large, Angus is the international. Bobby, you've got the big company covered. Tell us about you.
It's funny. It doesn't feel that way, but I'll throw it out there. So Bobby Morrison, I'm the CRO at Intuit. Prior to that, I spent a good amount of time at Microsoft as well, running some global mid-market and SMB businesses. So what my team is made up of, I've got a little over 1,500 sellers, broken out between telesales, channel, corporate managed. So we have a managed instance in our mid-market space, and then business development. What's my next one? Today's virtual, 100% virtual. And in October, we will be hybrid as well. A lot of work on what return to work is going to look like, and how do we take advantage of all the greatness that comes with being on site together with your teams. I'm sure we all miss that. I miss that. But there's some goodness that comes from working remote. So we want to be able to leverage the benefits of both. So we're working now on how to operationally structure the business, the operating mechanisms, everything else to take advantage of both.
Cool. Bobby, I'm going to start with you on my first question. I don't know if you know this or not, but Bobby is a longtime family friend, and I think we were FaceTiming and talking about the exciting things that are going on for your sons right now. And this was back when I was still like denying there was going to be a problem, right? Like my official policy to the Factor 8 crew was keep traveling, see your clients, try not to French kiss any senior citizens, everything will be fine. And Bobby was talking about how his team was planning for the second wave, right? So I was immediately struck with, man, you're out in front of this, right? Your whole company's out in front of this. You're smart, you're strategic, you're forward-looking, you're planning. I felt like an idiot. And I was just super, super impressed with where you were at with that. So I want to start with you and Intuit and what you guys are thinking about, right?
Okay.
I asked about October, but do you have a long-term plan? And can you tell us a little bit about where your heads are at and what you're doing with that?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember that conversation. I didn't know where you were going to go with that. I'm like, we talked about a lot of things, so that could have gone in a variety of not so great directions. So thanks for not going there.
Not yet,
at
anyway.
the time when you and I were speaking, we saw a moment where we felt like there was going to be a reemergence, and we were connected in with CDC. We were connected in with, all the appropriate agencies. So we had a little bit of inside scoop, and we said, hey, look, first quarter fiscal for us, which is calendar third quarter for most, is going to be super important for us to get out of the gates fast. And if there is a second reemergence, then who are the winners? Which market segments are going to be disrupted the most? And which ones are prepared to accelerate in that kind of a virtual environment? And then how do we invest and double down on those small businesses to help them be successful? And it played
Q3
out
2020, right, Bobby?
Yeah.
Right. This was Q3 last year. Yeah.
This
Okay,
was
cool.
Q3
Keep going.
last
Sorry for
year.
the interruption.
So as we look forward, you look to the states like where Jared's located and some of the others where the markets are open, and you can see which industries are performing well in an open marketplace. And some of them are fairly well known, like they just stand out. You would know restaurants, and to a certain extent hospitality are emerging, but there are other types of small businesses that are thriving in an open environment. And now knowing many of these closed states are finally starting to move towards being more open, we are doubling down and connecting with those types of small businesses to make sure that they're set up for success. We also see a very strong emergence in self-employed. So not just gig economy, but beyond gig economy, the rebound that we saw in Texas and Arizona and Florida and some of the other southern states started first in self-employed, jumping up dramatically. So we expect that same to be true in New York and in California and in Washington and the places that haven't made those turns. So we're really taking the intelligence of the staging and timing across the country, at least domestic US, to say, what have we learned? Based on that, how will we prioritize our investment and resources heading into this next year?
Brilliant. Literally the only company I've heard doing that. And then how about for your team? Right? How are you looking at this long term? Do we bring everybody back? Do we leave it hybrid? How long is the rollout? Tell us about that.
Yeah, and the approach that we're taking is we want to maximize employee effectiveness. So there are certain times you're going to be most effective when you're on site, side by side with your peers. And we think there's real value in some of those things. There's team building. There's the ability to benchmark and best practice even better than what you can do digitally. Can you do it digitally remote? For sure. But there's a value to being there on site. We also realize that for people in our Fredericksburg office or in London or in Toronto that are driving 45 minutes to an hour and a half to get to work, man, it's kind of nice to not have to drive an hour to work and an hour back home. So in those instances, we want to try to enable on-site learning and those types of things that are available that they can do at home and let people be productive in that environment. So we've taken a very, like I said, a hybrid approach. It's different by work group. Some people will be completely remote and virtual going forward. Others where we believe we can keep them clustered principally with their sales leader, whoever that individual is. So that's one kind of organizational principle, is whatever the team does it as a whole, connected with their leadership, not independent. So we won't have a team that has some of their people there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and some of the other people there Tuesday, Thursday. We want them clustered together.
I really love that. Again, not something I've heard from other leaders. So let's talk to your peers who are on this panel and find out what's guiding their back to work plans. Lauren, can I come to you next and then Angus?
You can. And actually, I want Bobby to keep talking because I'm basically writing down everything that he's saying. I love that. Whatever you do as a team, because I think that drives so much. I mean, we're thinking along the lines of, first and foremost, we need to remain competitive. And we know that if we were to take, I think, either extreme, that would probably diminish our competitiveness in attracting and retaining talent. And so we very much, with my telesales team, it's very much it's an entry-level job, and we have some room for advancement in there, but it is absolutely we're going to teach you our tech, we're going to teach you how to sell, we're going to teach you sales process. So a lot of that and keeping that team engaged is driven around the culture of what we created. And we did create such a robust in-office, Jared, you've been to our office, in-office culture for our team of winning, teamwork, and fun. So we're thinking about how we incorporate part of that, but also with the flexibility of having people be able to hold on to some of the goodness that came from, like, not driving an hour in each direction, and or having an opportunity to make it to your kid's baseball game. Well, that's for the leadership. My kids on the floor don't have kids. Most of them don't have kids. So that's just a really important part of what we're doing. I think of the number of new sales reps that we have over the course of the past year who I've never met in person. And going back to Bobby's point, they haven't had the benefit of sitting next to, like, our number one, number two, number three seller and just hearing that conversation, and or the classic going and getting a cup of coffee and, like, I'm having a problem with this. Have you tried this? And that serendipity, you're right. You can do so much remote with technology, but there's so much that doesn't happen. And it's the hearing a great conversation. It's like you walk by somebody and you see how they've organized their screens and their Salesforce, and you're like, what are you doing? That you just don't get in a remote environment. But it definitely will have to be a hybrid approach, because again, if we're going to remain competitive with all the folks in the greater Boston tech market and Denver, we know we need to do that.
So I love that's another way to look at it, right? So the first thing I've learned from you, Bobby, is as you plan this out, leaders, you've got to look at what's going to be most effective, what keeps people their most efficient, their most effective, right? But Lauren's point is also super valid. Let's also, nod to the fact we're in a war for talent. And if you are mandated 100% inside only, for instance, you're going to lose some talent. Not to mention whether we recruited some virtual talent over the last year. So I'll be interested if Angus or Jared have anything to share about that. So, all right, talk to us, Angus. What's guiding your back to work philosophy?
Well, something behind this worth keeping in mind is that my group in Barcelona is really a sales academy for the to feed the broader VMware sales force. So our demographic is quite young. It's being seeded by new college grads who then come through into the SDRs. They perform as SDRs and they go into the quota carrying role as sellers. So also there's an aspect in Europe that you need to be based in the country of your contract. I don't know if that happens where you have to be in the same state in the US, for example, or you can just be in the US if you've got an American contract. So we need people to be in Spain. So during this pandemic, we've been hiring someone in Germany, for example, but they're obliged to come to Spain. They're obliged to come to Barcelona, which can sound a little bit illogical, but it's the kind of some of the challenges we faced in this reality. But people are one of the reasons they're setting up in Barcelona is most people are pretty happy
Exactly.
to Barcelona. Right?
Yeah, there's a hardship here of having to look at that beautiful
there.
sea out your window. Yeah.
So anyway, that's the backdrop. So as both Bobby and Lauren were saying, I mean, there's an element of learning you get just by being around other professionals, and we've got this young demographic. Our mission, my responsibility, as well as being a sales leader, is to be a talent developer. So these young professionals that come into my team, they need coached, they need developed, they need nurtured and supported, and they need sent on their way. And so much of that learning is being missed out in the last year because they're not learning directly from, like you said, Lauren, with somebody with a weird configuration of a couple of screens, what's going on there. That's the practical learning they'll get from being together. So we will, whenever we can get back to 100%, which I honestly have no idea when that will be. It could be, I'm thinking next Easter, but we will have the opportunity to be in the office and at home. That's the new reality. It's the work-life balance. It's also attractive to a broader spectrum of talent out there. When we get back in the short and medium term, we will be restricted to the number of people we bring in. So we'll be doing what Bobby was saying is, we want the principle of keeping the teams together because of this, learning by observing, being around colleagues doing a similar job. We will say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this team's in, Tuesday, Thursday, this team's in. Then we rotate it for the following week. It takes a lot of management, but I think having the groups together, especially since when we went into lockdown, my team was 50, now it's 180. So most of the people have never met each other. Right?
Yeah.
So getting them back together, is something that's important for us.
Angus, what I really heard you say through this too is that that learning is your number one priority. And there's no question. I mean, I run a learning organization, right? And we are working our butts off to make virtual fantastic. But we all know that face-to-face trumps all. So because learning is your number one priority, your goal is 100% back on site. Interesting. I wonder, Jared, I'm going to ask you this question and then you can tell us about the rest of your situation. If you have employees who are basically saying, I have no desire ever to come back in on site, is that okay with you?
It's actually kind of one thing that I wrote down. We were always, we have 2 hubs and we try to hire in those hubs, but being in a Tennessee market as a software company, there's a lot of people we want to go hire that might be on the coast or New York, San Francisco,
Right.
whatever. So we have always kind of been open to fully remote. I think if there's one thing we've done, we've escalated that in the pandemic. We've probably hired 30 people this year, and I'd say 75+% have been entirely remote. So at our company at this phase, if someone doesn't want to come back to the office ever, we're set up for that. And I think we've actually hired to enable some of that. And probably the biggest thing that I think about is not company offsites. It's now like, how do we get company on-sites to focus on this collaboration and this enablement and this learning on a good basis. I don't know what the right cadence is going to be or when they'll start, but that's really what we're thinking about. We're going to keep our locations, but we'll probably never require anyone to be back in the office. I think that what we're seeing though is people want to come in on a few days a week to collaborate and ultimately, engage with their peers. I think that's a big miss that everybody's really missing right now.
But it won't be a policy. It won't be a requirement.
I don't think that we will require people to be back in the office ever again.
Fascinating. I wonder how many of our peers on this panel are right now just a tiny bit envious of us, the tiny companies, that are like, wow, I can't even imagine being able to do that. Jared, was it easier for you to hire because all of the bound are like, Angus has to hire a German speaker who currently lives in Barcelona in the last year because they probably weren't allowed to move there in the middle of it, right? So talk about restrictions. All of the bounds came off. Was it easier?
I think it's enabled us to build better onboarding programs and partner with people like we've partnered with Vendition for sales development onboarding, and they figured it out. So they might have somebody in Boston or Portland or Seattle, and we can now work with this partner to bring on sales development reps at a rapid pace because we're not constrained by are they in one of the markets that we're based out of. So
Right.
I'd say it's sped things up in certain departments, but there's the trade-offs, of course. Like we could get a lot better at remote onboarding and enablement of people that we may never meet in person.
Right. Oh, it's definitely real. Okay, guys, I'm going to do a round robin on this one, and we're going to talk about burnout. Is it real? Is it not? I'll share the poll results, but I want to share something that's a really great perspective I heard a month ago. First, it was an executive forum like this, and the gentleman said, you know what? We all think about the fact that we're working from home, but if we're honest, that's not what's happening. We're living at work. And that, I paused a beat on that, right? And that is what's happening to so many of us. And that has escalated burnout in some cases. So by a thumbs up or a thumbs down, would you say in the last few months, your burnout is equal, up, or down? Angus, up. Lauren, up. Jared, equal. Bobby, equal. I'm going to go that on my team, we're up a little bit. And I'll be the first to share that I personally have had this. Like, I was planning the kids at summer camps with any working moms and dads out there understand that, like, kids home for summer at a certain age, it's like another full-time job trying to, you remember homeschooling? Yeah, that's my summer. So I'm trying to get them into different camps and, do everything. And it's like a 12-hour engagement. And I have this one block of time where my kids aren't engaged in anything. And I'm like, oh, what I really should do is drive them to the Grand Canyon and we'll look at the Aztec, blah, 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 blah. But I really want to do is sit on a freaking beach. And I'll tell you, I never took care of something any faster. My vacation was booked. My assistant saw it on the calendar. She's like, Lauren, you have like 5 events that week. Did you not even check? I'm like, nope, I'm going. I'm out. So burnout, right? Burnout is up. So Lauren, you gave me an up. Tell me, what are you seeing and what are you doing about it? So I'll go round robin on that next.
Sure, and I'm just going to give you permission. I took I think they were 11 and 14 when I was commuting to Arizona, and I brought them with me one time, and I drove out to see the sunrise, and we did a hike, and I'm like, let's go see another part of it. They're like, Mom, it's a hole in the ground. Can we go do something else? So don't feel guilty. You're not taking them to the Grand Canyon.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're off the hook. I mean, it's an interesting situation. We were just acquired. And so we're going through that whole process of, we've got some new leaders coming on board. We have new investors. We're doing different things. So it's adding. So there's the day in, day out job, and then there's that job on the side. But yeah, I think it's increasing. I think the people who, and I try to live into this, I think the people I see who manage it best are the folks who take the time. You got to take the time every day to do something for yourself, whether it's, walking, running, lifting, meditating, cooking, whatever that thing is. And I'm great on some days and terrible on other days. My rings are not closed right now, which is, but I'll get to that later today. But it's tough. Like if we were in meetings together, I'm the pacer. I'm the one who can sit still for 10 minutes, and then I'm in the back of the room walking around. And, you can kind of, but you can't really do that on a video. It's sort of distracting and annoying to everybody else. And so for me, the burnout comes from sitting and if I have to sit for too long during the course of a day. And, the other part of it is I'm looking this way, and here's my bedroom is like a 2-part thing. So my desk, yeah. I wake up and my desk is right there and I go to sleep.
You're living at work.
It's the last thing I see. And I have to, because if I was downstairs right now, there's a cat and a dog, 2 boys. my mother comes wandering into company meetings sometimes, you know, because I have an addition on the house. So I just have to hide up here in my room. So that's I think where the burnout comes, and just having less of that serendipitous, I'm going to go back to that word, like you get up and you start cracking jokes or you're doing something different because it's not happening, that unplanned little bits of joy in the workplace aren't happening as much as they do when you're in a Zoom to Zoom to Zoom life.
Yes.
Lauren,
The sitting, the back-to-back, the living at work, the Groundhog's Day, all of these things are combining, and it's not just with our teams, it's with us. Yeah, so good. All right, so what we're going to do is we move on. I'm going to go to you next, Jared, then Bobby, then Angus. Tell us about burnout and what you're seeing and feeling also from your team. So I love the advice we got from Lauren, and I know you pull this to your managers too, which is every day one thing, right? One thing that brings you joy every day.
well, I was going to actually comment to Lauren. I think this helped me personally a lot. Also, it helped my team. But like, I've been on a Zoom 30 or 60 minutes since 8 this morning. It's pretty much every day. And I now take at least one. If it's not like a customer facing thing, I'm like, hey, can we go to, I call them micro Zooms, and I just FaceTime them. And I'm like, I'm going to go walk around and get, 2,000 steps in outside. And obviously you can't do that on all calls, but that has definitely changed the monotony of standing in this bonus room all day, trying to be, on the computer. And that's helped. And I think, even the best part about this pandemic is people can be empathetic. So if it is a customer call, they're like, yeah, that's great. I'd do that myself. So I wanted to add in that might be helpful to some people to get like a walk and talk call.
100%.
And Lauren,
What about,
I don't even know what you asked me, but I think it was somewhat related to that.
Yeah, but what about your teams? Anything else that is helping? Like, are you seeing, you said you're kind of stable with burnout.
Yes.
Do you think that's because you've taken great action with it? Because you're open like we are, right?
Yeah.
How have you kept momentum high?
I think that has helped. 3 to 4 days a week, I'm usually in the office. I stayed home today because I have the house to myself, and my 3-year-old isn't going to run in here, and I could be on this call, no problem. But I've been getting back into the office more, and I think, still on a lot of Zooms, but being able to, like Laura mentioned, have a conversation with somebody in passing or collaborate with product or engineering. Those things are very difficult in a not, like physical space. So you have more crossing points to actually have a 2-minute or a 30-second conversation even. And that's made a huge difference. So that's definitely helped my.
Sorry, Jared. Yeah, I'm just going to say, like, here we are talking about being able to get back out in the world, lowering our engagement, but you're saying it's actually increasing it because getting back out in the world means getting back together with your peers.
Mm-hmm. Which
yeah,
I
that's
think
a really good point.
I think collaboration is the biggest thing that I am focused on. How can we do this better? Because it's really hard to get to a decision when you're spread across and trying to do it over Zooms, and scheduling those in-person times is a critical thing for us as a moving forward. Like we have to figure this out.
Yeah, I love that. That's really neat. Thank you for that. By the way, Jared has created really cool workspaces at Ambition. So he's got people that are virtual, but they don't come into a corporate office or a WeWork. Like in Nashville, it's a home. Like you'll see his employees at the upstairs, the downstairs, on the back patio. I just think it's the coolest thing. And it creates
I regret. So we had that house. It was awesome. I miss it. We had bunk beds upstairs. The founders would stay there. It was great. And that was 2 years ago. Lauren came into our customer summit in Nashville, and we got a really nice space. It's a great space in Nashville. And we opened it in January of last year. And then a tornado hit in February and closed Nashville. And then a pandemic hit. So the house would have been great to have kept, a little bit longer. We changed it at a tough time.
Sorry. Let me just rub some more salt in that wound.
But our new office is even better, but I wish we still had the house.
Good. I'm coming down soon. That's good. All right, Bobby, talk to us about burnout at the employee level. How are you, what are you seeing? How are you keeping engagement higher? Fix it for us, please.
Yeah, I put it in the middle just because you're asking today. If you would have asked me 6 months ago, I probably would have been, wow, it's a lot higher. We've worked really hard to take unnecessary meetings out of the schedule. I think everybody has said that, like even in our engineering teams, there's no meeting scheduled after 12 o'clock in the afternoon because our engineers need to sit down and code for hours at a time without interruption. We've done similar things with our sales teams. We've freed up, we have no staff meetings, no manager meetings on Fridays. That's all for interviewing, talent related, you know, development, whatever it may be on Friday, that's when we do it. We've been very intentional as well about shifting our meeting schedules to leave the breaks to eliminate Zoom fatigue. You know, it's funny, I shared with my EA that I didn't want to do hour-long meetings. Let's cut them to a half hour. And then I just ended up with twice as many meetings. So that didn't really work. So we started to bundle in 20-minute and 45-minute meetings. And just try to create space in between. And I think there has to be some acknowledgement to what you shared before. And certainly some people will disagree. Like, you know, the person that drives an hour to work, the vast majority of us would say, wow, if I don't have to be in the car for an hour in traffic, that's fantastic. But there are a handful of individuals that say, that's my decompression time. That's my time when either I get ready to go to the office or I kind of wind down coming away from the office back home. So there's always going to be a nuance that isn't ideal for everybody. But broadly speaking, I think we've also all had an opportunity to realize the flexibility of working from home, and doing things like, you know, dropping my son off at football practice this morning. That would not happen if we weren't in this environment. So I try to be a little bit of a glass half full when I look at all the affordability that we've been given as a result of some of this.
I love it. By the way, I tried the same thing with the meetings. And I think I'm on my own worst enemy though, right? Like it's going to be a 50-minute meeting, but I let it go to 59.
Yeah.
And we have to manage that. And by the way, role model that as the leaders.
Same.
So, but what I wrote down from that for sure is longer times without meetings, mandated longer periods of time, and
actually,
everybody can benefit.
For my leadership team, one of the things that Satya Nadella was really big on at Microsoft when I was there was dedicating thinking time. And sometimes, like in certain cultures, that can be considered really squishy. What do you mean thinking time? But literally blocking off 2 to 3 hours at a shot when you can sit down and not catch up on all the emails, but sit in front of your whiteboard if you have one at home or at the office and really try to blueprint out and think through the bigger, longer term items. Having that time set aside once a week is also unbelievably refreshing because it gives you a sense of control and a confirmation that you're kind of moving things in the right direction. So for what it's worth, I think that's another plus.
No, I think it's brilliant, but I'm going to do a follow-up on here and invite everybody else on the panel to join the conversation, please. So jump off mute. Don't feel like you have to be called on for this. But the higher you go in an organization, the more you're in charge of strategy, right? And of ideas versus people and things, right? So here you're in charge of doing things, and then here you're in charge of people, and here you're in charge of strategy and ideas. And each level up requires more alone time, thinking time, strategy time. But I'm going to reverse this for a second. So leaders, give yourself the damn thinking time. How do we do it for the reps? Many of us, like we said, are hiring right out of school, super junior. I'm 23 years old. I had a job before this, but I only stayed a few months. How are we keeping these folks focused? And I don't, listen, we've all been through the ups and the downs of this. And maybe it's because there's lights at the end of the tunnel that people are finally like, oh, I can't take anymore. Or, you know, maybe it's just accumulation of the time. Maybe your organization is back down, whereas they were back up like Bobby's. But how do we keep 23-year-olds focused on getting on the phones and selling?
I think
Lauren,
a wise person once told me, you know, always having things to look forward to. And so we try to pepper, whether, you know, it's been certainly virtual things, but now we're actually starting to have real things to look forward to. And just, you know, to it's just like life, you know, it's important to have your vacations like you did planned out. So no matter how ground out you are, you have this thing to look forward to. So we're starting to plan those out. And so there's sort of a light at the end of the tunnel, and especially with this age group. And that's what I have as well as the 23-year-olds. So much of work is your social life, or so much of your social life is work, I should say. I got that backwards. And it's that community that you're seeking. You don't have it in college anymore. And so, you know, putting things out there for folks that they can have to look forward to. We're actually, this morning I was planning the Rockies has this great pavilion that I could send my entire Loveland team for under $300. And there, so we're planning that right now to have something to look forward to. Or we're planning for our sales leaders a few golf outings. We actually did one in Waltham last week and saw each other for the first time, but we had that on the books for a while, because, you know, the line leaders have a lot of that same, you know, they're on a hamster wheel just as much as our reps are. And so it's just one strategy we're using.
I really love that answer. I didn't see it coming, and I think it's brilliant. Also, there was this Freudian slip you said at the beginning that I loved, that I'm just going to underline for a second. You're like, yeah, we did virtual things, but now we're doing real things. And it's true. Like, right? I know we did a virtual wine thing, and we played games, and we did MTV Cribs, and we all had a good time, but it wasn't real because it was virtual. So real events to look forward to, I think, is a big winner. Jared, I see you're off mute. Do you have a strategy to share?
I was just going to add to what Lauren said and what Bobby said. I'm so guilty of holding that time and having thinking time and dedicated work time, and I'm trying to be better. For our team, you know, we try to automate and enable them to schedule their days like that. So you're calling at the right time, or you're reading, you know, research at the right time. And I think, you know, big hats off to our sales leaders and just kind of scripting those days, as well as we try to like workflow everything. So they know I'm looking for, you know, 2 meetings a day or whatever it is, or I'm trying to close a deal a week. Like everything that we want them doing is being recognized. It's being blasted out to the company through Slack or
celebrated
Teams.
with ambition.
We are celebrating those wins. Yeah, through our own product. And Lauren, what you talked about, I think is huge. People understand, like a lot of them in sales, and I don't believe people are just coin operators. They want to know there's something at the end of it. So we do digital accolades, which is, you know, in the office you have trophies, now we have digital accolades. And I think the golf trip you're talking about, those are things that we think mean a lot. And even for an SDR, which is that 23-year-old a lot of times, like there are certain shifts we'll run where if you hit certain milestones, maybe you take Friday off or you get a half day. So it's about aligning and also enabling them to schedule the perfect day and not let that day be scheduled or be reactive to it.
Bingo. Okay, listen, by the way, Angus, I'm coming to you next, but I just have to underline this for a second, Jared. At the very beginning of this pandemic, the mistakes I saw your frontline leaders making most often, even your second line leaders, was, oh my God, I can't see what they're doing. I can't hear what they're doing. I need control, right? And they were just micromanaging the crap out of everybody on their teams. And then smart leaders started using their dashboarding tools like Ambition, right? To say, listen, our goal today is, maybe we have a stand up at the beginning of the day, a virtual, right? Huddle, and here's what our goals are, and here's what we have to get to. And I can see how you're performing. I don't have to micromanage you all the time. I'm going to set the goals. I'm going to look at the results of those goals. And then we're going to maybe layer in some of that flexibility, right? So if you were to combine everybody so far, it would say, give them something to look forward to that they can win. If they're done with what they need to get done in those micro goals and milestones Jared brilliantly sets up for his team, then maybe it's you're done by noon. Maybe it's that Friday's off. Like, don't try to fight the work-life harmony and taking your kid to football. Embrace that, and you earn that by getting your job done whenever and however the hell you do it. I like that.
I would add to that, managers before sucked at coaching. They sucked at holding one-on-ones. They sucked at doing it. They could go by and be like, hey man, how's your forecast look? And, you know, pat on the back, attaboy. In a remote world, they're
You've
lost.
Been coached.
Yes, exactly. So in a remote world, it got that much worse. So I think, put simply, providing and facilitating a coaching conversation and letting the rep lead it has been a game changer for a lot of us internally, I'll just say, but also our customers.
No, listen, we saw that too. The number of requests we got from teach us coaching, teach my managers, help me implement would just skyrocketed because it can't just be the drive-by coaching anymore. Angus, you've been patiently waiting to tell us about how you're managing burnout, and I've added like 3 other questions. See if you can do it all in 26 seconds. Go.
26 seconds, okay. Well, for us, the VMware has been very, very good in general in the broader company. So every manager, manager of people got training on mental wellness, mental well-being, seeing the signs. It could be somebody who normally would be on camera is now never on camera. Somebody who's contributing a lot is kind of, not contributing anymore. So recognizing the signals and the signs, and then understanding how to follow up, understanding the support. On top, we had things called pandemic days. So if anybody just thought, I'm about to hit a wall here, just take time out, just go. You don't need to ask permission, not just go. But also coming back to, what the discussion was there about, how do you keep people, on track? And, I think it's about having a value in the interaction. So as what Jared was saying about, the coaching interactions and stuff, that's value for a sales rep. It brings value to, enrichment. If you're just calling people onto a call just to kill time or take time out when they'd be better off calling customers, that's not adding value. So we thought a lot about that, how to add value. But I've gone over the 26 seconds, but to be
It's good though. By the way, you answered a question.
It's recognition. Massive part of it is recognition. Recognizing that somebody is doing a good job, somebody is contributing to the goals of their goals and the team goals, and staying connected. Bringing value in every interaction. I think that's really been key, and that's been a big learning. But like I say, we've put a lot of effort into supporting individuals and understanding how to keep them on track.
Angus, by the way, you answered Shane's question, account manager from Jobber. What are some obscure warning signs, right, that you can see when somebody's really disengaged? So not going on video, somebody who used to contribute, who's not contributing. Panel, anything else you can add where you've maybe caught somebody who's in trouble out there or didn't catch them? All right, I'm going to go to my next question. Those are 2 really, really good answers. Thanks. Next question comes from Sarah, an inside sales supervisor. Oh, hi, Sarah, at USA Blue Book. What are the best ways to encourage the move back to the office for those who don't want to? Any ideas on incentives or, right? How do you balance that?
Can I say, I think that I go back to my comment about there's got to be value for the individual. It's got to be, an environment where somebody, is feeling that they're enriched during the day, that, they left work that day better equipped to achieve their objectives, better, whatever they are, development or, business objectives. It's got to be fun. It's got to be supportive. It's got to be, engaging and collaborative. I think they're the key things. So from a leadership perspective, as well as, facilities perspective, there's a big responsibility on us and our colleagues doing stuff around, how to configure the office and whatnot, to make sure that these elements are considered. I met a company in Boston actually a couple of years ago, and I was talking to the CEO, and he spent $500,000 or something constructing a staircase in the middle of the office, and everyone was considering, what the hell is he doing? What's going on here? And he said, that's when somebody's moving up between floors, that's where the magic happens. And I'm like, what? And then I found myself, I was in that office a couple of days, I found myself having all these conversations on this big staircase. And I was like, that's what he's talking about. So things like that, creating an environment for innovation, engagement, and enrichment of your day. I think that's what's going to make the difference.
I love it.
Yeah.
Jared, you just jumped off mute. You've got something to say, and then I'm going to go Bobby, then Lauren.
Okay.
I think Angus really hit it, but the office is going to have to be value add. It's going to have to be more fun and more exciting. And I think it was Sarah that asked this, but one, I'm not sure your company has a policy, so they might not have a choice. So you have to work with them first on that. But 2, if you get them there, you really can't let them say to themselves leaving the work today, like, I could have done this at home. I think the office has to be a better experience than ever, and companies and sales leaders have to be challenge and thinking about how do I make this a value add experience that, ultimately people want to come back into the office. Because if it's not, I think you're gonna have a lot of, head scratchers leaving work that day, and that's gonna be a tough situation for your culture.
Yeah, nice. Bobby, what do you think about this?
There's not much to add. I love what Jared just said. Like, I'm going to steal everything he said and just take it back to Intuit. I don't think it's an incentive. I think the environment has to be a pull for the employees to want to come back. So like we've even talked about, and this is super expensive to do, but we've even talked about, let's not go back to the same old office. Just because the cubes happen to be stacked the way they're stacked doesn't mean that that's the way it needs to be when we return. So we're doing things like expanding huddle spaces more than we've ever had before, because the purpose of being on site will be what Jared mentioned earlier, collaboration. So how do we create more collaboration spaces, knowing that that's where we're going to spend a disproportionate amount of our time? And how do we make the environment just that much more exciting and engaging on site, so that you want to be there for the time that you're there, and you're doing things that are of value. And exactly what Jared said, I think it was spot on. Like, you definitely don't want anybody walking away saying, yeah, I could have done that from home.
I love that. Really cool. And what a neat idea. Like, we've talked about something to look forward to, like going to the Rocky Stadium, but looking forward to this cool new office and seeing everybody and making that a pull is awesome. Lauren, anything you want to add to that conversation?
Well, I think one thing I know my team has always enjoyed is when I can grab hold of the CIO, CEO, CTO, and be like, come on over and meet, John Collins, our number one rep, or like drag them over to listen to phone calls, which is, yes, I can send out calls to all these different people and they can maybe listen to them and then get a note over. But the other folks, the other leaders in the organization coming by and admiring the work that sales does just has so many benefits. Like, oh my God, I came home and like the CEO was listening to me and like told me I did a great job. And that's just awesome. So that's just one element that is part of our culture that has just not quite been there during the pandemic, and is absolutely something we want to bring back. And the other thing I'd add, because this just came up this morning, so it's top of mind, is in talking to folks, we're looking at our first wave of folks to come back in. We're starting with our Waltham outside of Boston office. And the thing that I heard a lot this morning was, if I raise my hand to come back, does that mean that I'm going to be fast tracked to having to come back permanently full time? And it's just going back to that flexibility piece, because people are worried they're going to get caught up in a box of like, you're now the in-office person because you have raised your hand. And so just making sure that they understand that we're all figuring this out together. Like, we're going to have a plan what it looks like, but I'm $1 million by the time we get to the other side of this, that, what is it? No plan, first contact with the enemy, first contact with reality, no plan is going to hold together. So, we're going to learn how it works together, but just letting folks know that we're going to be flexible and work together as a team on what good looks like is also just important in terms of incentive, I think.
Yeah, that was massive. Really good. And what an idea we can all steal. Like, if you're trying to get people excited to come back to work, right? Jared Houghton in the office today, come hang with the founder. Angus McGeehee, he's on the steps. He's taking your questions, right? Like, that is an incentive. And studies have shown that that's huge, especially for millennials, like that access to, right? Learning and development is key and a top pull for millennials to pull them back in. Access to leaders, spending time with leaders, collaboration, something to look forward to, new spaces. These are all brilliant ideas. I'm going to do one last round robin for anything else that you want to add. We're talking about burnout. We're talking about staying focused. We're talking about back to work plans. Any last advice or things to consider for your peers out there? So I'm going to go to Bobby. Oops, Angus is off first. Angus, then Bobby, then Lauren, and then Jared. We'll wrap it up for us. Last words.
I just say watch out for attrition. I think, certainly from my perspective, I'm seeing people, they've been going stir crazy. They want to change. They don't know what they want to change, but they want to change. And something they can change quite easily in a competitive market when they're young and with valuable skills is that they can change their employer. So I would say, keep an eye on that. you know, so therefore bring value in every interaction, make them feel valued, make them feel that, you know, every day is a valuable day in their learning and or achieving their goals. That for me, and something, you know, is something that myself and my team are looking out for a lot.
Massive. It's massive, Angus. Thank you for that very much. Bobby.
You know, we talk a lot about 4 key flywheels. And I think in this environment where everything is changing and a little bit of the future is unknown, one of them really stands out. And that's the connection between the voice of your customer, your learning and development, and your coaching platforms. And how do you constantly make sure that you're listening to your customers and feeding that into your L&D and to your coaching that's happening on a day-to-day basis? If there's any one thing that's most powerful that I can point to as we go forward, this is the thing that we're focused in on the most, because there's no amount of planning. We can take our best guess at what the data is telling us, as I alluded to earlier, but inevitably the voice of the customer is always the source of truth for us going forward on what should be coached and what should be focused on, as well as what should be trained. So that's the one thing I'd leave the group with.
I love that. Thank you. And if you're doing the coaching and the training, that engages the people and it keeps them there. And that checks Angus's thoughts as well. I love it. Thank you. I can't even remember who I said was next. Lauren, I think you, and then we're giving Jared the final word.
Sure. I guess don't lose the goodness that, like, you know, I have a daily stand-up that we started on March 15th, 16th, whatever that day was, with my sales leaders, my ops, my enablement, my HR, finance. And we meet every morning at 9:30 because of our, you know, our Denver office. And like, we would never have like done this before. And it has connected us so tightly. This isn't necessarily about the folks on the line, but it's connected us so tightly as a team. I think we've missed like a handful of days in a year and a bit. And it's something that it's goodness that we're going to carry forward, regardless of where we are, like whether we're in or we're out or whatever, because it has been one of the keys to keeping us going. So there's great things that have happened. Conversely, I think eyes wide open, going back in and, you know, rethink what that good looks like. It's not necessarily what it looked like 15 months ago. It's like, you know, how we are valuing each and every interaction, because we might not necessarily be there every single day together. And so really seeing people and making the point of getting to know them and learning who they are.
Good. Before we give Jared the final minute, I'm going to ask all of my panelists to open their chats. If people would like to connect with you on LinkedIn, how do they find you? If you've got open positions or something fabulous that you'd like everybody to know about what's going on in your company, use your chat so everybody can have it right before they drop off. Jared, bring us home.
I don't know if I have a ton to add. I think that was great. I really appreciate Lauren's comments, Bobby's and Angus's. It's my belief that the world is probably hybrid for a decade, if not forever. Like, I don't think it's going to be just back. So I would say invest in the enablement of your teams, invest in the physical spaces as well as the digital spaces, because it's just going to be different. And I think, like Lauren and a couple others said, you know, we're figuring it out on the fly, but I believe enablement and learning and coaching of the digital seller is probably it should be a top priority. And I don't think the solution will be, hey, well, when we get back to the office, we'll do this, because I think it's going to be a very hybrid world.
I love it. Perfect last words. I thank you all so much for joining. I knew you would love getting to know each other as well. So panelists, I'll make sure that we're all connected after this. If you have a question that wasn't answered, make sure that I did hit the questions, and we'll do our best to answer it as we send out the replay to everybody. Thank you to Jamie and to Jared at Ambition, to Lauren at Constant Contact, Angus at VMware, and Bobby at Intuit. I have the best friends in the world. You guys are awesome. Well done. Thank you. Have great days, everybody.
Great to see you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.